Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here, and I want to talk to you about Big Mix Vintage Video. Right now in Huntsville, Alabama, you can go and rent movies from an actual video store. Now this is run by my good homie of over 20 years, David. So go let him know that PCP sent you. This dude's got over 18,000 movies. That's right. He's got DVDs. He's got Blu-rays. He's got 4Ks. Hell, he's got VHS and Laserdisc. He's got an exceptional collection of your favorite filmmakers, your favorite film franchises, and he really specializes in hard-to-find, unheard of horror movies. This dude is where it's at. He's my go-to source for those hard to get movies that I don't want to spend a freaking bundle on Amazon or eBay to get. It's just a nice old school kind of vibe when you go in. One of the best video stores I've ever been at. If you're in Huntsville, Alabama, go to 309 Dallas Street and check out Big Mix Vintage Video. Follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and you can email them at bigmixvintage@gmail.com. What is up, everybody? Welcome to PCP Movie Night. Welcome to the conclusion, the grand finale, if you will, of Horrorfest 2024. I'm your host for tonight's festivities, Rockin' Robbie Bills, and tonight we're talking about Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. So let me tell you, station, pop, pop, boo, and happy motherfucking Halloween, everybody. Here we are. I think this is the first time that we here at PCP have actually ended a horror fest on our channel on Halloween. So I thought to myself, we got to do a movie about Halloween on that night. And at first it was going to be Trick or Treat. Then I thought about Halloween. Then I thought about Halloween H2O. But then I was like, you know what? Fuck all that shit. F all that noise. We're going and we're doing one of my favorite Halloween movies, Halloween 4. The Return of Michael Myers, which I have on my Scream Factory box set right here. I don't have the full box set. I really need to get in on that one, but this is what I got it in, and man, I love this movie. This was probably the first Halloween movie I've ever seen, but I'm so excited to be here with you out there in the chat. I see Two Gun, I see Chill Out Man, I see Loke. I see, who else do I see? I see Albert. I see Rogue Collecting. I see GT Key Comic. I see Pete. I see all you beautiful people out there. Speaking of beautiful people, let's get the panel going. It's Brooks. What's up, my man?
I was giving you the Michael Myers treatment. Sorry.
Oh, shit. Okay, I get it now. You should have told me that beforehand.
I need the... Yeah. I just had that sound effect. It would have been perfect.
Also joining us on Halloween is Happy Halloween Hammer Time Holshoe. What is up, my man?
Hey, I'm good, man. Happy Halloween. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about some Halloween, man. I haven't watched this in a while, so I did a fresh rewatch. I'm ready to talk about it. I'm excited, man.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Speaking of ready to talk about it, it's our man Steph from Missing Link. What is up, Link?
Yo, what's up, fellas?
Dude, we had a great show last night on Blood Splatter Chatter, right? To finish off Horrorfest on his end. But man,
This is a nice little cherry on top, I'd say.
yeah, it's the cherry on top. You even missed the trivia question about this movie. So
I had heard that name so many times. Now, if it ever comes up again, though, I'll be ready.
hell yeah. All right. Yeah. Also, from across the pond, where they don't even know what the fuck Halloween is, it's her buddy Mark from Geeks Unleashed. What's up, my man?
Oh, hi, what's up, guys? I'm just sitting here with my Marmite, chilling.
With his Marmite.
I've never watched this before. Not even tonight.
You didn't watch it?
No, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Oh shit!
I was very confused, man.
I watched it twice today. I watched it twice, actually, today. So.
Bro, you pulled a Verno and watched this shit twice in one day, man.
Yeah,
I'm very curious to see what happens after that.
I'd never watched it before, and I'm excited to talk about it. Glad to join my first ever Horrorfest anything. Yeah,
that's right. We're popping your Horrorfest cherry tonight, Mark.
Yeah. No, I'm pleased to be here. I've seen you guys doing it for years and just never got involved. So that time difference is always a bit of a thing, but actually the time difference isn't that bad tonight.
It's 5 hours instead of 6, so that's nice.
That's right. Yeah,
it's like the 1 week of the year where that happens.
Yeah. That's what, mate. You know, next year I should time it that when my clocks change, when our clocks change, try and line up as many things I can jump on as possible.
It's actually not a bad idea, dude. You should get on that right now.
Good time management.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about this film. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. So this is directed by Dwight H. Little, written by Alan B. McElroy, and it is starring Donald Pleasance, Danielle Harris, Ellie Cornell, Michael Pataki. A bunch of people are in this movie, including one of our favorite characters in Dazed and Confused. We'll get to all that later. This movie was made for $5 million. It made $17.8 million. It's a movie that has a high reputation, actually, amongst a lot of Halloween franchise fans, right? A lot of us consider it one of the best Halloween sequels. I personally believe it's the second best Halloween sequel, right? I think the best Halloween sequel is H2O. I love H2O. I think that movie is absolutely brilliant. And outside of Scream, my second favorite is, well, including, I guess, Scream's number one. Number two for 90s horror films might be H2O. That movie is so freaking good. But this movie is awesome. So my history with it is this. I think this is the first Halloween film I've ever seen. Like, when I watched this is 1988. I'm 7 years old. Y'all know the story. You know my backstory. You know my origin. My mom was super into horror movies, and she would take me to the video store. I could rent an NES game. Usually it was Friday the 13th because I didn't understand that game and I kept trying to beat it. Or it was Super Mario 2, which that was another one that I would rent all the time. But we would always go, and her and my stepdad would pick some movies, and then me and her would pick a horror movie together to watch, right? This is something I'm pretty certain I watched this before I had ever seen Halloween 1 or Halloween 2. I love and adore this movie. So I've met Danielle Harris, by the way, which I think is super cool. So let's just take a moment to respect my friend right there, Danielle Harris. This was her very, very first movie, and she's a kid actor, and I think she does an amazing job in this movie. I love the characters. I love the vibe of this movie. And what I think about this movie, outside of all, I mean, I'm not saying this includes Halloween 1, but actually I might even say out of all of the Halloween movies, this is the one that has the most Halloween atmosphere and tone and vibe to it, right? From the very beginning, where you see the idea that Haddonfield is this like farm town, and that Halloween is so soaked into every single bit of this movie, and atmospherically, the blue lighting, the smoke and the fog, like Man, I think this movie really excels more than visually than a lot of the other Halloween films. Now, it's hard to compare any of these films to the first one because the first one was a masterclass in suspense and horror and just elevation, right? That's our favorite word this week is elevated horror, which existed all the way back in the 70s. Even before that, it existed in the 20s and the 30s. It's crazy to think that. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite Halloween sequels. I love the characters in this movie more than most other Halloween films. I love the atmosphere in this movie. I think the music is top notch by Alan Howarth. I think this movie absolutely fucking rocks, and it's a great movie to watch on Halloween. Like I said, though, I kind of got this like personal, nostalgic kind of attachment to it. So I'm curious to see what the rest of the panel think. Brooks, I know we've already done the Halloween franchise review, which we did before Halloween Ends. But what do you think about Halloween 4 on its own?
Well, I've never seen Halloween 4. It was one of the ones I'd missed. But I thought it was pretty good. Like it was a decent. It feels very much in like what I perceive as a Halloween sequel, you know, at the time. Like it very much feels like a Halloween movie, but like not the same as the first one, but kind of like, you know, it's kind of like the evolution of Michael Myers, because I feel like they're taking him in a different, like, was this movie tied into like the Thorn Cult stuff from like the later movies?
Not really. That's kind of like, this is where that shit starts. So that all really starts in part 5, which is the follow-up. Were you there for the Halloween franchise, Brooks?
No, that was one of the ones I missed.
That's one of the ones you missed. So you hadn't seen this, right? But you saw Curse of you saw Curse of Michael Myers because you're boxing.
Yeah, I've seen
right?
Curse of Michael Myers.
So 4 and then 5 is where it starts the Cult of Thorn stuff, right? And then that really elaborates in 6 Curse of Michael Myers, and that's pretty much the end of it. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't remember that you weren't here for the Halloween franchise review.
Yeah, it was all the rare times that I wasn't able to get all the movies, or something happened that I missed out on that one. But yeah, this one, like, it feels like, you know, like in the first and second movies, like he's just like a regular dude who's like really sneaky, and like, you know, that was the danger in him, is like, you know, he feels like just an average guy, you know. That was kind of what the fear was in Halloween, is like just a regular guy who could just, like, you know, be so sneaky that he could just go around murdering people on Halloween and not get caught. But in like this movie, this is when they kind of start giving him superpowers a little bit, I think. Like when he first wakes up and he just stabs his thumb through that dude's skull.
I'm like, straight through his fucking forehead, dude. It's awesome.
I'm like, what?
It's like Batman on Loomis and shit. And
I was like, old John. I was like, what?
He's like Batman on cocaine, dude. He's just like,
and he has teleport powers, dude. He teleports in this movie, bro. They gave him superpowers, which is kind of, you know, I think it's different. Like, you know, it's the new Michael, but yeah, like I found that interesting. You know, that's kind of a thing that's carried on in these later sequels too. Is like Michael performing these kind of ridiculous feats, and being like this unstoppable killing machine, like Jason kind of. It seems like they kind of Jasonified Michael in this movie a little bit.
A little bit, but I think there's, me personally, I think there's a better structure, better atmosphere, and better characters compared to some of the Friday the 13th films at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll get some differing opinions as we go on. So just to recap this real quick, you know, we're not trying to deliver here on PCP Movie Night what you can get clearly in a very well-made video out there on YouTube. But they made Halloween. It was a big hit. They made Halloween 2. It was a bigger hit. Then in Halloween 3, they tried to, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill tried to do something different. Let's make this a Halloween-themed anthology every year. They did Season of the Witch, which I think is great. But at the time, even though it performed decently enough, it made more than its money back. It wasn't critically it wasn't critically acclaimed, and it wasn't really accepted by the fans, right? And so they decided they really need to bring Michael back in part 4. This was 10 years after the first one, so it marked the 10-year anniversary. It was kind of a big deal. And John Carpenter and Deborah Hill tried to develop a story, but they just kind of kept clashing. and it led to John Carpenter giving up all of his rights to Halloween. He sold them to Azrar, who is what's his name? Mustafa? What's his fucking name? The producer of the films. John, help me out here. What's his name? You know his name.
I don't remember. It's like Mustafa Akkad or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, like they sold all the rights to him and his family, and that family has been the protectors of this legacy for a long, long time. So I it's interesting, Brooks. So Brooks, what have you seen? You've seen one. You've seen two?
Yeah, I've seen 1, 2, and 3. I've seen Curse, H2O, and Resurrection. Which is
so
my favorite. I love
for me,
Resurrection, dude. It is so fucking silly. It's one of the greatest comedies of all time, I think.
All right, I just kicked Brooks off the panel because that is some bullshit to say. John, Hammer Time Holshoe, what do you think about Halloween 4? Brooks is gone. He's not coming back.
Honestly, so I'm in the same boat with you. It was probably one of the first Halloween films I saw before 1 and 2. You know what I'm saying? And so I liked it back then. And then I start to like, oh, I don't know. It's not that great. It's not as good as the first 2. And I don't know. I start to kind of change a bit on my opinion of it. And then on the rewatch, I realized how a monumental task they had in bringing Michael back and not having Laurie and having to say what happened to Laurie. You know what I'm saying? They had a lot on their plate. How do you bring him back? How do you excuse where Laurie went? And how do you revitalize this franchise? And this is what people wanted. They wanted Michael back. So even though I had some issues with it, and you still got Donald Pleasance, which is an amazing actor. You know what I'm saying? Him bringing him back, if they wouldn't have brought him back, that would have hurt it. You know what I'm saying? He obviously did subsequent Halloween movies after that. But I enjoyed on the rewatch. I think Jamie, Daniel Harris does a great job. She's adorable. She reminds me a lot of my niece. She does a good job. I thought she was a lot younger. I guess she's like 9 when they're making the movie, or 10. I thought she was younger, maybe because she's so petite. I thought she was like 6 years old, 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? Because I think they were trying to get somebody that's the same age and size as Michael. You know what I'm saying? To have that Michael, you know, when Michael was a little kid.
Yeah, like when he was killed.
Yeah, exactly. So they're trying to get. So the only qualms I have with the movie going back and watching it is it kind of shits on Jamie Lee's character, because mathematically she would have had to have the kid like right after the fucking movie. You know what I'm saying? After the original Halloween. So I'm like, okay, so she hooked up, had a kid. They both, her and her husband or boyfriend or whatever, die. They don't really cover what happened to her. Mysteriously, the kid has no pictures of her dad. Like, she does not know who her dad is. And she's only got pictures that look like they're from the movie set of the first movie. Anyway, so I don't like that. And I understand that, again, they had to do something. Hey, she's not coming back. Jamie Lee Curtis had been all this, like, you know, had become the Scream Queen and was in all these films, but then she had moved on. You know what I'm saying? She was doing Trading Places. She was doing other things. And I understand entirely why she didn't want to resume the role. I mean, she would eventually come back for, what 4 fucking films. But I knew why she didn't want to at the time. So they had a big task of like, oh, how do we continue this? Oh, about she's got a kid, and that connects her back to Michael. And of course, Michael's her uncle in that timeline or whatever. I guess there's like 3 timelines. It's weird that it's like fucking Marvel timelines, basically. Or DC
Halloween
timelines.
Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, there's like, yeah, they did that shit before fucking Marvel and DC did it. And so there's 3 fucking, but in this timeline, yeah, it's her uncle. So I do like how they connected it. And I think Daniel Harris is adorable and does a really good job. And I enjoy the movie. I mean, it's not without its flaws. Again, the biggest issue is I just can't imagine her getting knocked up, having the kid. They both get killed. They don't say what happened. Let's just assume she had a boyfriend. She, you know, because she was very naive and sweet. So like, there's no way she had a kid that age. But the
hold on
a
second. You're saying she's getting knocked up, man. Okay, so how old do you think Laurie Strode is in 1978? 17,
is she a
18?
high school student?
Yeah, so she's 17 or 18 probably.
Yeah,
right?
let's say she's 18 for sake of argument.
All right, say she's 18. Jamie is listed as being 7. They say she's 7 years old. That means that she's 21 when she has Jamie. First of all, fuck you. My mom had me when she was 16. So fuck on out. You know what I'm saying? But no,
I'm
like,
just saying, she's
especially
not
back in the 70s and early 80s, people were having kids way earlier than they do now.
I was going with the math of how old Daniel Harris was. She's portraying a younger character because she is very petite. And even when you met her, she's very petite. That's her height. Robbie's not standing on anything in that picture, by the way. She is very, very tiny.
She's tiny.
She's very tiny. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not
she's very
saying
tiny.
Actually, we can break kayfabe. I bring a cinder block every time I go meet somebody, and I stand on top of it. I'm like Tom
He's wearing
Cruise.
platform shoes.
He's standing on something. He wears high heel shoes. He's got these pumps, these stiletto pumps. But so she's very petite. So she's playing a younger character. Okay. So and honestly, too, now I think about it, if she was so sweet and naive, of course the first guy she meets that shows her affection is gonna knock her up. You know what I'm saying? That happens. That happens all the time.
It may not be a knock-up scenario, John.
Yeah.
You know
Okay.
what I'm saying?
They were madly in love.
It was different back in the day.
They were madly in love. They were engaged, and then they died in a car wreck. Let's just assume.
But you're
how you
right,
thought-
dude.
I love how you
1981,
thought
I was born, and my mom was
Yeah.
16, and I was not planned. Let's just say that.
Well, I was just doing the math in my head. It didn't sit well because I was going by Danielle Harris's actual age. Because she
I
was
got
born before the movie, well, before Halloween came out. You know what I'm saying?
I love how you thought of this whole backstory of like
Yeah,
how she got
yeah,
pregnant, like
Well,
who she met.
So,
like,
And
if I
really,
put
what
that
it
aside-
is that Jamie Lee Curtis was like, "I've moved on. I'm not doing a horror movie again,"
yeah.
and she
Yeah.
didn't want to be in it. So they were like, "What do we fucking do?" So they kind of wrote her out. And are you glad that they wrote her out that way versus say killing off or say recasting the character?
Oh, yeah, it would have been worse to recast. Also, I like the fact that it is a relation to her. They're like, oh, Michael's back, but it's some random person named Steve who lives in that house and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy that they, bring it back. And that's the reason Michael came all the way back. He drove hundreds of miles, right, to get back to, right? I think so, to get back to Haydenfield and to go after his niece. So that's what I was saying. Most of the issues I had initially, looking back on it, I have less issue with those because it was a big feat to bring Michael back and to connect the stories and do it well. It was done well. I think it's scary. I like the cast. I like the sheriff. I like things about it. I think it's done well. And I think it was a good way to bring Michael back. And it's not done in they could have really half-assed it because they've definitely half-assed in some Halloween sequels and some other horror films. When they bring back the person, they're like, oh, so-and-so's back. Well, why is he back? Just guys, he's just back. Just fucking deal with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't really tell
Yeah.
you. And I like how they connect the dots. And I enjoyed it on the rewatch, man. I think some of the kills are good and it's fun on the rewatch. And it was like I said, it was the first one I saw. And then I didn't like it as much after seeing the OG ones. But then coming back and revisiting, I'm like, you know what? This movie's better than I give it credit for. And it's got a great cast. And a lot of that goes to she's a good actor for being a little tiny kid.
Yeah, her first movie too, man.
Yeah, she does a good job, and so I give her props. And then I was thinking, is she in a sequel? Maybe I'm losing my mind. Then I forgot she was in 5 as well. For some reason, I always forget that one.
She's in part 5, and they ruin everything. They just ruin everything in part 5.
They do, but 4 holds up, I think, really well. You could do 1, 2 because you have to really do 2 because it connects the dots with the family thing, and 4 and have a pretty good little trilogy there just in itself.
I even think you could go 1, 2, 4, and then H2O, and just be like Jamie was a kid in the car crash that killed Lori and her husband, but Lori survived, but didn't realize her kid did or something. But I wish that H2O connected more to this movie.
I do too, because she does come back and they dismissed everything past 2. You know what I'm saying? And then of course, the 2019 or 2018, what year did the other one come out? Dismisses stuff from H2O and 2. It
dismisses all the sequels, man.
Yeah. So I think is there 4 timelines?
There's the 2018 timeline. There's the Curse of Thorn timeline, right? There's the H2O timeline, and there's the Rob Zombie timeline.
Yeah,
That's
so there are 4 timelines. Yeah, it's fucking Marvel, DC got nothing on these motherfuckers.
It's the Halloween verse, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just waiting for the next one when you get a weird appearance by Tom Holland or something. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
the director, not the actor.
What about you, Steph, man? What do you think about Halloween 4?
This was a first watch. I thought I might have seen it, but when I started watching it, I realized I hadn't seen it. But a couple of minutes in, I was like, "Oh shit! Am I gonna think that the 2018 one is all right? I didn't really care for those, but am I gonna actually enjoy those?" But by the end of this movie, once I saw how 2 of those movies aped the plot of this one movie, it garnered a little bit more respect. It was a little tame, but I did like kind of. I don't know when that whole enforcement with like horror movies was started. Like like the '90s, you said they started like crack down, but did it like start in late '80s or anything like that?
On cracking down on what? Like
Like horror movies,
the
making them
gore
more
and the fucking
gore.
yeah. This is a
Yeah.
part of it because like this movie's
Okay.
not exceptionally gory, and
Yeah.
it's got a very sexy scene in it, but it doesn't show nipples, so I guess they're okay, right?
But no, yeah. By the end of it, I enjoyed it. I was a little worried going into it that I was like, well, do I need to see any of the other ones? But you know, you didn't. They kind of only referenced the first one for the most part, if I remember correctly. But you know, it was fine. I didn't love it, but I think it was I think John made some valid points with it. Them bringing Michael back around that time, and then trying to set Michael up or establish him for like a newer. You know, that's almost like 8 years, 10 years since it's when because the second one came out like a year after the first one or something like that, 2 years. So it's been a
Yeah, it's
while.
like
So it's like it's
81 or something like that, right? So yeah, a few like
okay,
1980 maybe even actually 1980. So like 2 years later, I think. Yeah.
2 years. So you know, it'd been a shit like a decade damn near. So they were establishing him for like a new generation, a newer audience, and you know, kind of bringing back older fans to the fold. So with them, you know, I think it was a serviceable movie. Um, it was tame, you know, but I can see how growing up with it, there definitely be like a nostalgia-ness to this movie. And once again, I got to give it credit for the fact that two of the newer Halloween movies aped off this one movie. That's crazy.
Dude,
So
I
yeah,
remember like out of the new trilogy, Halloween Kills is my favorite, but Halloween Kills is a redux of this movie,
yeah,
right? Like the militia, the whole town coming up, like how it affects the town. Like that was the initial idea pitched by John Carpenter, that it was about the town and how they have dealt with this tragedy over 10 years. They even cancel Halloween in the town, right? And things
no
like
shit.
that. He kind of takes those ideas into Halloween Kills, but the problem is it's 40 years later. Who remembers fucking 16 people? Actually, we don't count part 2 in the new trilogy. So he killed like 6 people one night. Like, is if this town's haunted for 40 years by that? Like, I don't know. This one really does make me feel the impact that the first 2 Halloweens, because it's all in the same night, right? Has on the town of Haddonfield, right? Like, I really feel that in this movie.
I can agree. Um, yeah. The cast, I will say they had a good cast. You know, I was kind of not expecting much, but I actually enjoyed quite a few of the characters. The boyfriend was kind of a endearing dickhead. We'll get to him eventually, but yeah.
Someone's got to point him out when we get to the next bit. But what about you, Mark? Over where you're at, there Halloween. Y'all don't even know what Halloween is. So why don't you tell us what you think about Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers?
Yeah, I'd never even heard of Halloween until like a couple of days ago. Like, no, obviously people do celebrate Halloween in the UK. I wouldn't say it's like massively embraced as it is in America, and I feel like the parts of Halloween that are embraced over here is more the horrible, you know, the gory, the darker side of it. Where I've been in America several times actually over Halloween, and I've seen like the fun parts of it as well. Like I've got a picture of me on Halloween night with some guy dressed as Duff Beer Man, like, and things like that I think are quite funny. But like I was driving through town actually to be honest, Robbie, it was actually around the same time I sent that voice note to you earlier, with someone like hanging like a dead skeleton covered in blood outside their front door, and I'm just like, off a tree, and I'm like, I don't know, like that. Yeah, whatever. I personally wouldn't want to hang a dead body off a tree outside my house, but you know, I guess each their own. So people do get into it over here, and there is whole aisles of shops. In the shops with loads of like hand stuff, and you know, there's a shop called Aldi here, which is a supermarket, and they were selling all meats. I saw a couple of days ago that were Halloween themed, and they were like, they cut some steak up into like a hand, and it's like dead man's hand steak, and I was like, who's gonna eat that? Like,
I would totally get the fuck out of that. I would buy the shit out of that, dude. That'd be so great.
And yeah, there was they made like a whole meat section Halloween themed. I'd never seen it before that, but anyway, so yeah, it is something that's enjoyed over here. In regards to my experience with these movies, the first film I ever saw, so I haven't seen them all. The first one I saw was H2O. That literally was my Halloween entry point. I didn't see Resurrection. I actually did watch the first Rob Zombie Halloween, and then I didn't carry on with it for some reason. And then I did watch I think it's 2018 first trilogy, and I hadn't carried on with that either. But anyway, when I knew I was going to be watching 4, you'd messaged me previously to say watch 1 and 2. So I have, and I always knew that there was this weird one about 3 that it went like that they tried to make it an anthology. I'd already knew that anyway. So I watched 1 and 2 earlier this week. I didn't rewatch them. I just went straight through them so I could get to number 4. And then today I rewatched 4 twice. I watched it straight after work, and then I watched it again before we recorded. So I think the first time I watched it, I was sort of like, I don't know, didn't really love it. I was like, it was okay. And then, but then rewatching it, I know what you said about Verno earlier, and I remember Verno saying something like his opinion always changes on a second watch, and I've noticed that about myself. Like even sometimes, like reading something twice, I think sometimes it's just absorbing it first, and then the second time, then you sort of start to notice things. And when I watched it a second time, my opinion definitely changed. There were certain characters which I felt were flat on first watch that started to maybe develop a little bit more. Like the foster sister, I started to have some love for that character, I would say, probably towards the end, where in the beginning, not on the first watch, maybe not so much. And even to be honest, Jamie herself, I thought to myself, I was watching this and I thought, I don't care if she lives or dies. And I was like, this is a terrible thing to think about, a 7-year-old. And but then the second watch, though, I got into it and I actually was like, I wanted her to survive. And I started to see that character to develop. And I think there's definitely some like standard typical slasher tropes. I always love with like the slasher villain that they have the power of teleportation, and that I found brilliant. The 1 minute they're behind you and then they're in front of you, and a lot of that stuff goes on in this film, and it's all stereotypical. But for me, what really got me was the end. Like, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the end later, but when the end happened, I was like, oh, I'm into this now. I was like, and that's why I wanted to go back and rewatch it again. And but that ending definitely threw me off. I think the first 2 came across very much like your slasher, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, sort of human villain. And then in this third one, the amount of bullets that guy took, I thought he must be 50 Cent or he's supernatural. And I'm not sure which one.
I like the 50 Cent reference, man.
And so I just wasn't sure whether he was a rapper or whether he was supernatural. And that started to cross my mind. And then I'll be honest with you, I've cheated a little bit and gone and watched the first 10 minutes of 5. I've held off. Never seen 5. But when I went and watched the first 10 minutes of 5, they play this eerie music when she's like touching Michael's hand, and I was like, okay, like they're just trying to backpedal a little bit there. But maybe they did.
They actually filmed that bit for 4 and then didn't use it, and they used it at the beginning of 5. But then 5, by the way, completely undercuts the whole fucking ending of this movie.
Oh, okay.
I think 5 sucks, man, to be honest, and it's one of the worst Michael masks out of all of them. It's so bad. It's got this weird fucking. It's too short, so you see the neck and all that shit. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's.
Also, you know what? Earlier when I was driving, also this was on the same journey when I voiced note you earlier. There was a guy, like obviously I saw trick or treaters and that. There was a guy standing on the road in a full Michael Myers costume earlier.
Did you not run him over and catch him on fire and just shoot the fuck out of him?
It wasn't Michael, it was Ben Tramer.
Shut your mouth, Verno. Shut your mouth, Verno.
But I think in the main, I think it surprised me that I think I actually like this film.
My bad, Mark Works.
Who's talking? What's going on?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, just to finish my point. I was going to say, in the main, I think I actually enjoyed this film, which surprised me because the first time I didn't think I was going to, and then when on the rewatch, I think I actually enjoyed the film.
Yeah, that's awesome to fucking hear, man. It is awesome, and I will say this: out of all of the Halloween films, even including the first one, I think has the most compelling characters, maybe outside of H2O. I really like the characters in H2O a lot. But Halloween 4 has got some good characters. It's got some good performances. Brooks, what's one that stands out for you?
Well, since I get the first slot, I'm gonna take Loomis. I love Loomis in this movie, dude. Like if he feels so tired in this movie, like his struggle to contain the evil that his Michael is starting to wear on him, and like one thing I noticed about this movie is that Loomis kind of feels like Elmer Fudd. And Michael's like Bugs Bunny. Like, Michael's all his kills are like little like he feels like kind of a little jokester. He's like kind of like taunting poor Loomis, who's like hunting after him, but like always a step behind. But yeah, like and the reason I thought that this might have a tie into the like Curse of Michael Myers stuff with the Thorn cult is because of Loomis's like reaction at the end of this movie. When there's like kind of a twist at the end, and Loomis is like, no. So I'm thinking like, wait, is he like, is it because of like the curse? He knows the curse has like been passed on or whatever. So that's like I wasn't sure, if this was tied into.
This is where it starts. You got to watch 5 now. Unfortunately, you got to watch 5 because that's where it really leans into that. That's where they developed that idea, and then they do curse, and then. They didn't. The H2O rebooted everything, right?
But
So
there's a sixth one as well.
Yeah, I think H2O was a good direction to take it in. Like they should have stuck with that.
They were like, "Oh,
continuity.
fuck this, the Thorn stuff. Let's get rid of all that."
And then H2O was a success, and then they're like, "All right, let's fuck it up with Busta Rhymes and fucking Resurrection, dude. Let's fucking."
Yeah, the only reason Michael gets away with all the stuff he does in his movie is because he hasn't met his kryptonite yet, Busta Rhymes.
The only reason why Halloween Resurrection is not the worst Halloween film is because of Halloween Ends and because of Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie. You know what I'm saying?
That's
like,
crazy that they made Halloween movies worse than Halloween Resurrection. Like, how is that even possible?
They did it, dude. They found a way to make that fucking movie fun in some form or fashion. But no, you're right, dude. Absolutely a fantastic performance. I mean, Donald Pleasance is in the first 6 films minus 3. He is the core of this film, right? And I love him so much in this movie. And in part 2, he's all like, I shot this guy 6 times, right? He's just over and over. You realize like this dude's fucking like, he's almost like, is he like, and I wish they would have delved into this a little bit more, but is if you look at part 2 and part 4, is this dude as bad as Michael Myers? Because he's like responsible for the death of innocents with his obsession to stop Michael, right? It really comes
he's
across
the one who basically
very well.
tells the militia guys, like he basically mobilizes them.
Yeah.
It feels in this movie too like he's aware of Michael's power up. So he knows he's like, more dangerous now. So that's why he's a little more crazier, a little more loose cannon-y in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. He's fucking off his rocker. Speaking of off his rocker, what about you, Whole Shoe? What's your favorite performance in the film?
I was going to say Dr. Loomis, so fuck you, Brooks.
I know. That's why I got the slots, the head slots.
I would say I'll take it before somebody else does Jamie. I mean, Danielle Harris does a really good job. She's adorable. She does a good job at being, just this innocent little girl. That whole twist at the end. She does a good job, man. There's a lot on her shoulders of her being a tiny little kid. And I think she does a good job at being like sweet and innocent and you feel bad for her. I'm a little confused though, how she keeps having these like reoccurring visions of Michael how has she seen what Michael looks like with that fucking mask?
Because all that's real. She thinks it's in her head, but all that is real. That's the whole thing. When he grabs the mask, when he's in her room, like all that shit actually happens.
Well, no, that I get. I get that when she got the mask, but I thought she had a dream. Oh, he was in the bed. Wait, but he got the mask after, I thought.
Oh, you're right.
The timeline
Yeah.
doesn't work there. Now, him
doesn't
pleating the
work.
mask at the store or whatever they were in.
You don't think she's heard the stories though, right? She's
Why
had
would
to
you?
have heard
Why
these
would?
stories.
Yeah, like the kids were like making fun of her because like your uncle is the boogeyman, which is like I thought that was weird. Like, because if I was a kid and I knew this kid had like a serial killer uncle,
That
I
would
wouldn't
scare you?
fucking be doing that shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you're
Yeah.
a good person, Brooks, man. I would have been that fucking 7-year-old being like, your uncle is the boogeyman. You are an orphan. Like I would have been. I feel.
Yeah, they're pretty fucking shitty kids, man. So
You know,
I don't know.
someone
Maybe
else's school.
you're right. Maybe she heard stories because I would think that her adopted family would shield her from that, but I guess they can't shield her from going to school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She might have heard things. She might have saw pictures. Who knows? So I guess that makes a little more sense. But regardless,
That's one
she
of the
does a really
points
good
of the
job.
film, I think, is that, and they could have elaborated on that a little bit more, added 2 more minutes. I don't think it would have hurt the pacing of the film, but the idea that this is something that has really affected this town, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if they would have done that, like to really elaborate on how like they remember this is 10 years before, like a dude who shows up and kills a bunch of people on Halloween, right? Like she has to have known through just the town mythology what happened to her mother, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I just don't know how she knew what he looked like. Beyond that, you know what I'm saying? I don't blame Danielle Harris for that. She does a good job, is a adorable little sweet kid running from, and then that twist ending. She does a good job. She carries a lot for being just a little kid. So I give her props. And her and Donald Pleasance make the movies. I mean, there's some good supporting cast, but those two really made for a good follow-up. And that is his name, by the way. It is Mustafa Akkad. He was killed in a bombing, but he was a great producer, and he inherited the franchise.
And his son runs the franchise now, right?
I believe his kid took over. Yeah,
I think his son's first work in film was on Halloween 4 as a production assistant, actually, like very young. So that's super cool. That's still in the family, even though John Carpenter got rid of it. And we'll see what happens. What about you, Link? What do you think? What's a performance that stands out to you?
I know I said earlier that I was gonna shout out to the boyfriend, but yeah, he was cool. But Mark made a great point. I'm gonna steal it from him. The the daughter,
Rachel.
Rachel,
Yeah,
yes.
Rachel. That was the one I was going to shout out.
I'm more excited to rewatch it. Now that Mark said that he got so much out of it on the rewatch, but I did pick up on the first watch Rachel's plight. She's got this weird little stepsister. They are, it's been through some shit, and it's like, she's the black sheep of the town. Like it's like a joke everyone's in on, but the girl, and she's like, yeah, I know. But I don't know. By the end of the movie, she's like earned that. She really becomes like the protective ward of Jamie, when it's really not her responsibility, But so I did really like her by the end of the movie. Great performance.
She's great in the movie, and not to like spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen part 5, but they really fucked that up in part 5 too. Just so you know. But like Rachel is awesome in this movie. I like her arc a lot. Right?
Yes.
Where she's caring more about this boy than she is her actual like foster sister, right? And even like the dad of the family says at one point, like, you're being so selfish right now. Mm-hmm. This movie is also about, it's not just about Jamie's trauma, it's also about Rachel understanding how to be more selfless and not so selfish, right? Mm-hmm. Speaking of selfishness, Mark, what's up, man? I'm glad you're here. What's a performance you want to highlight?
Well, it was going to be Rachel, but no, I would just, before I move on, like Rachel did, like on that second watch, I realized, like you said, how selfish she was, and very teenage girl, whatever. And then the ending for me, like on the roof and the drive and everything, that Rachel really redeemed herself for me. I thought it was great. I was like having real, maybe I'm overplaying this, but I had like real Sarah Connor vibes from her in the end, just how like she just was going out of her way to save Jamie. But anyway, I guess the two that I had written down. Anyway, I'm gonna go with Brady. He was a dick to start with. real selfish guy that really didn't care who he slept with as long as he was getting his. And you know, I didn't love his acting, but if I'm honest, when it came down to it, he stood up for the two women. He was obviously, well, for Jamie and for Rachel, and I would have thought, you know, in America when you're allowed to carry, I would have thought he would have known his gun wasn't loaded, but you know, he did what he could, even if he just had to whack the guy. And even I thought though it was cool that whilst he'd fucked up shooting Michael, that he tried to bare fist him. So yeah, it wasn't much of a character development journey, but I felt, there wasn't that many characters that we got to see that much development with. I think Jamie and Rachel and Dr. Loomis were probably our three strongest characters in this movie. I think Brady is probably the one outside of that, and it's not much of a development, but I do love the fact that eventually he does stand up and realizes, you know, it's not all about getting laid. So and he probably has one of the best death scenes in the whole movie. He has his head, you know, crushed to death, and yeah, so that's probably it for Brady, if I'm honest.
Michael Myers literally crushes his fucking head, man. Like, it's so great, dude. And you don't like, the gore is not so into it, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, you're right, dude. So Sasha Jensen played Brady. We also know him from Dazed and Confused. We love that dude in that movie. He's kind of playing a similar role in a little bit, right? You guys have taken all the best ones, but I'll say Bo Starr as Sheriff Ben Meeker is amazing in this film. Like, he's so good. And what I love about his character in this film is he comes up like, first of all, he's like, Loomis, you're fucking crazy. What are you talking about? And then very quickly he's like, oh no, you're right. Let's do it. Let's get this shit together and let's put it together. I also love Kathleen Kinmont as his daughter because, dude, she's fucking hot as fuck. And I think that if Jelani was here, that might be his favorite character. So I'll just. Who
was that doctor at the beginning? The one, in the opening scene, like who was slagging off Dr. Loomis.
Oh, you're talking about Michael Pataki as Dr. Hoffman, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Dr. Hoffman. I honestly, I burst out laughing when he's like, "Whatever happens, I hope we get rid of Dr. Loomis, retires, blah blah blah, or dead." And like, I just burst out laughing. I was like, I don't know. I thought if I had to pick that guy as a favorite, I thought he's got a great one-liner in the opening scene. So,
yeah. And the cool thing about the sheriff, by the way, is that he does reprise that role in Part 5. So that's one of the cool parts about Part 5. And Part 5's not. I love the Halloween franchise. It's one of my favorites, but there are movies in there that really fucking bother me. And the ones that really bother me are Part 5 and the producer's cut of Part 6. Anyway.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Before we get to you, let's talk about the style and structure. That's what we're setting up right now. I love the style of this movie. This movie feels like it has even a more accentuated or an elevated atmosphere from the first one, right? The first one is doing exactly what it needs to do. It's more grounded in reality. This one is now a little bit more into the fantasy of what Halloween is. Just that opening alone with those Halloween decorations in the farmhouses and the scarecrows and just the way it's shot, the cinematography in this movie is fucking amazing. I love the usage of blue lights and smoke to provide that atmosphere. It's part of the style. It doesn't have a lot of gnarly special effects, but it's 1988. And as Steph was talking about earlier, we got the MPAA all up on these movies, right? But also the executive producer, wanted this movie to have very little blood, wanted it to bring a tribute to the first movie, because a lot of people thought that Halloween 2 had some excessive gore and violence, which maybe that's one of the things we love about Halloween 2 now, the original Halloween 2, not the Rob Zombie one. But I mean, the special effects, though, that they may seem subtle, but they're there. But the one special effect that's really rough is Loomis's fucking burn, right? Yeah. They did it at first, and it looked like he had a fried egg on his cheek. So they fired the dude, then rehired him, right? And then he redid that, but they kept mixing it up. it goes back and forth. Like there are times where Loomis's face looks great and times where it looks really bad. It looks like me or fucking Brooks did it on a Halloween night, rushed in like 10 fucking minutes. But the structure of the film, I think, is great. It's very tight. It doesn't ever lag for me. It keeps moving at a brisk pace. What do you think about the style and structure, Brooks?
Well, this movie it does have the, very much the feel of like an 80s slasher movie. But it feels, it also has, it does have it has a style all its own as well, which is like, that's pretty typical for a Halloween movie. But, I think the most 80s thing about this movie is like, the kids, how the kids dress and how their hair is. Like, it doesn't feel like it's, a period piece so much. It kind of feels like it could be like, in any time, like, this, as far as like the setting and the neighborhood and everything. But like the hairstyles of the kids and the way they act.
Or
like,
the costumes.
Yeah, the costumes.
Those costumes, do they not take you back though, man?
Yeah, the racks with the costumes on it and all that. Yeah, it's like you could tell what time period is from, like, extrapolating that data. But yeah, it is I think it's a good style, and it obviously had an effect on future sequels going forward and how they would kind of do it as well. And it feels a bit like the previous movies a little bit too.
Yeah, I think that's the intention, right? Mm-hmm. Like in the special features, they say the director and the writer, like, we wanted to go back to Halloween 1, right? Like, we'll recognize Halloween 2 that it happened with the burns that they're showing on Michael and Loomis, but like, we want to go back to that style of part 1, but do it a little bit differently. And I think they actually handled it very well. What about you, Hammer Time Holshoe? On Halloween, what do you think about the style and structure? Halloween 4.
I mean, I think it's done well. I think it works. I don't think there's any part I would cut out. I do like the style. You're right. It does borrow from part 1. It doesn't quite have the suspense as part 1, but the style, it does. I do like very Halloween atmosphere. That did a good job keeping that. It was very, like, I don't know, sort of draws back to part 1's, like, the creepiness of Halloween night. I mean, I think it's done well. I can't fault anything, to be honest with you. Yeah, I agree with the shitty makeup on, and I understand why he had to have it because of the burns from part 2. You know what I'm saying? But beyond that, I think visually, I think it's style, cinematography, the pacing, everything's done well. I couldn't think of anything to add, to cut out. I mean, I think it's done, and I think it's wrapped up in a tightly packaged, again, I have no complaints. I couldn't. Yeah.
So
nothing, man.
The famous story about the Dr. Loomis makeup is that Donald Pleasance's girlfriend or whatever, like, watched some of the dailies and was like, it looks like you have a fried egg on your fucking cheek. And he was like, we got to do a new makeup. So they fired the dude. And then a guy from Fangoria was on the set who was friends with the dude who they just fired, the special effects guy. So then he says, we're not going to cover you at Fangoria unless you bring that guy back in. So they brought him back in. He redid the makeup, but they still, like, even though they reshot some stuff in the edit beyond his control, apparently, he says that they used that footage and it does look bad. And he actually retired from special effects makeup in movies after this movie. He was done. Jesus. He never did another one. So yeah, that's the one thing that really throws me off
to do, because you're doing on the face. It's not like it's a death scene and there's blood. You actually have to do something that looks like burns. It has to move fluidly. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like it'd be easy to do, although there are people on, like, TikTok and shit can do it way better now these days, and they don't look like they put much effort into it. But we won't get into that.
We got a lot of there's been a lot of learning since 1988, right?
That's true.
Also, he's the one who had to redo the mask, right? So in the mask, they, like, apparently brought him something that was, like, with pink hair or some bullshit like that. And he was like, this is not the mask. We got to get a Captain Kirk mask. And he tried to retweak it. And I know a lot of people hate the mask in this movie, but if you look at, I don't know, Revenge of Michael Myers and H2O, there's a lot, there's worse masks.
Yes. It's not as good as the OG mask, but it's not, I don't think it's
not, right?
I don't think it's bad. I think it's just okay.
Yeah.
That mask is not the worst offender. It's the thing on the face. That otherwise, visually, the special effects for the most part are decent. I really don't have any complaints. Nothing feels like it's made. There's definitely some horror movies from that era that were in the theater that felt like they were made for TV, like they didn't have the budget. I don't have that feeling here with this movie. It does feel like there was a budget for special effects, for everything they wanted to do. It doesn't feel like everything was cut out. I mean, surprised after seeing what the budget was versus what it made, I'm impressed. You know what I'm saying? In retrospect. But they didn't have to pay that big old Jamie Lee Curtis check.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Which by then she would have, you know what I'm saying? She'd already excelled. You know what I'm saying? She would have.
Yeah, this movie wouldn't have been successful. There would be no Cult of Thorn if Jamie Lee Curtis was in this film, right?
That's true. So,
and there'd be no Danielle Harris, who I think is. I think that would be a shame. What about you?
And
Link?
I know too that before we get to that, do you often holler about the lengths of films? And this is like, isn't this like hour 31 or something? It's not like almost
an
exactly
hour 28, man.
See, that's why you like it. This is why. If it was like 138, Robbie would be like, fuck this film. I'm sorry, Link. Steph, go ahead.
Yeah, what do you think, Link?
No, I think Jem made a good point. It wasn't too suspenseful, but like you said, Robbie, the plot always kind of like moved along, like so. It's like it kind of made up for the lack of the suspense. Style wise, it was fine. You know, I did. There were some cool, even though you know the MPA was all over this movie's ass. There were still some cool things they did, like when he impales the friend who had like the best friend who had like the super 80s hair ponytails and shit. It would have been so much better if it was a little bit gorier, but it was still a cool kill.
You talking about the chick with the big tits that he impales with the fucking shotgun?
Yes.
Dude, that's great. Yeah. No, that was the daughter of the sheriff. She's wearing that fucking. Okay. If Jelani was here, he'd be like, "She's so hot, she's great, but fuck the police." She's got that shirt on, says "Cops do it by the book." By the way, here's my Halloween 4 fucking T-shirt that I wear proudly. So hell yeah, I fucking love this. Continue on. I'm sorry.
No, it was fine, especially considering the conditions. You know, there's a lot going against this movie that you guys made some really good points that I know that was like riding against this. So I think it did its job. It's a good movie.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Mark, about the style and structure?
I think like you raised, like I'll just jump on what Link said there. You raised some good points, and I hadn't probably really considered too much about what they went up against when they made this film. So like 3 obviously didn't do as well, whether it was financially or critically or whatever. And there was obviously pressure to bring back people from 1 and 2. So they couldn't get Jamie Lee Curtis. I love the fact that her daughter, though, is called Jamie as a tribute to Jamie Lee Curtis. I thought that was a nice tribute to her. It was almost like, we respect that you don't want to come back, but we still have love for you, which I think is a nice thank you to her within the film. So then they have to rebuild the franchise with Michael Myers, and I think it was done well enough in terms of creating a daughter for her. I know we talked about the time gap earlier. I think, you know, whatever, you know, time, within movies, they do whatever they want when it comes to time. And I think the 10-year gap that they've created in the film is probably about roughly what it was between 2 and 4 anyway. But in terms of the cinematography, I thought it was really, really eerie. I think most of the film, other than a few of the school scenes, is mainly set at night. I love how it's not as suspenseful as the first one, but they still do enough to create atmosphere and some build up throughout the film, which I appreciate that. And because I think the more you go on into any horror franchise, they become less suspenseful, and you know, you have to do stuff to maybe chop it up. You know, even when I don't know how many Aliens films there are, but you know, 8, 9, whatever, you know, you kind of start to know what to expect. So they always have to try and play with the formula in the film. And so, you know, I think they did well to still have that suspense in this film. I think was it one of the things that really, and it's the same with so many horror films, the lack of intelligence that a lot of characters have. I find crazy in horror films that you're watching a horror film, you're literally like hand in your face, like face in your hands, like what are they doing? There was a lot of that, which I found frustrating, but you know, yeah, that's just a horror movie thing to have. But one of the things I really want to shout out that I loved about the structure here was and it wasn't obvious on the first watch because I didn't know what was coming. But I love the symmetry and the sort of the full circleness of this film, and you could almost end this film here. Like, it's almost a shame they made number 3, but you could actually have had 1 and 2 and 4 as like a trilogy and just end it and never continue it, because it was great how, like, in the first one, Michael Myers is 5 or 6 in his clown costume, kill people, whatever. And like halfway through the film, Jamie's in a clown costume. Now, I had no idea where it was going, but at when the final moment where she's in the clown costume, like having killed a member of a foster family, and Dr. Loomis is like screaming, etc. And I was just like, on the second watch, I was like, how cool is it that they were clever enough to write? Like, sometimes I can be quite, I'm sure we can all be critical of writers, but like, I just thought how clever it was that they must have gone back and looked at that opening moment and thought it would be so cool to flip it, to end it that way, and not have the audience see that coming, because I didn't see it coming initially. But no, so I thought there was some cleverness about the script, whilst you got some dumbass characters, you know, doing the shit they shouldn't have been doing. And like that gun moment with Brady was annoying. But anyway, but yeah, on the main, I think that they did it well. They wrote this whole film really well. I felt it flowed really nicely. There's nothing I wouldn't necessarily have chopped out, and I think they didn't do any dumb writer stuff, that the stuff suddenly happened that hadn't been set up. I thought, you know, they handled it well. And I know you've alluded to maybe 5 and 6 not being as good, but it left me intrigued to see what would happen, which I think is good when they can make you want to come back for more.
Yeah, I love that you're mentioning the symmetry, because one of my favorite things about this movie is the ending, right? Like, I fucking love that ending.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it does get undercut, right? Like they kind of pull themselves out of that ending, right? But the writer and director of this film did not come back for part 5. They were doing something else, and they actually both regret not doing so, because they really feel like they could have like evolved the franchise a little bit. But I love the symmetry thing. We just last night, Steph was there, we did the X trilogy by Ty West and Mia Goth on Verno's channel, Blood Splatter Chatter. And one of my favorite things I love about that movie is the symmetry, especially if you put it as Pearl, X, and Maxine. There's a structural symmetry there that really fucking works. And it does work between 1, 2, and 4 in this franchise. But don't regret part 3, because part 3 is fucking dope. All right, let's talk about the music in the film. The music is done by Alan Howarth. So this dude is known for working with John Carpenter. I think he didn't do work with John Carpenter on Halloween, the first one, but he was the co-composer of part 2 and part 3. And he's been the co-composer with John Carpenter for a lot of projects at this time. And they approached him. They wanted him to do the music because John Carpenter was like, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with this. You do you. I'm selling my rights. You're fine. Right. And they brought it up to him, and he called John, because John's his homie. And he says, hey man, they want me to do Halloween 4 and I kind of want to do it. So what do you think I should do? He goes, do what you want to do, man. Go for it. And I love the fucking score in this movie. I think it really takes what was established by John Carpenter in part 1, and it does kind of elevate it a little bit. And what I love about this, for instance, we just talked about the Exorcist franchise, where they misuse the Tubular Bells theme throughout the entire fucking franchise until the last film, Believer, right? Like, nobody, like, it's like they don't want to lean into that, right? You got to do the Halloween theme. You got to do that. The dun dun dun. This movie doesn't start with that, though. The first 3 films all start with a version of that, but they're a different version. This one starts with no music. The music starts slowly creeping up. You don't get that Halloween theme until Michael Myers is being wheeled out of the fucking sanitarium into the ambulance or whatever, right? And then it just picks up. I love the way that Howarth is using the themes, putting it together, adding his own unique voice to it. I think the music in this movie is incredibly strong. What do you think, Brooks?
Well, I was a little disappointed in the soundtrack for this movie, because this movie does have a very 80s aesthetic, but the soundtrack didn't feel very 80s. Like the theme feels like it a little bit, you know, it does have a little bit of that synth pop feel. And I did like that, but I think this movie could have done with like like a hair metal song or something in the mix. Just kind of like punctuate the era in which it belongs.
Don't worry, they correct that in H2O when they put in a fucking Creed song. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
what's
geez.
this life for?
Yeah. What a weird fucking song to put in there too.
Yeah, no shit, man. But it was of the time, man, 100%.
Yeah,
and it does date that film. Maybe if they would have put 1988, what's popular then? They put a Whitesnake song in this shit. That would not be cool, man. I'm sorry. Speaking of Whitesnake, their biggest fan is here. Hammer Time Holshy. What do you think about the music in this film?
You were gonna out me as being the big Whitesnake fan I am, but okay. Dude, great composer. You're right. He definitely carries on that Carpenter style and more synth. Which rarely I associate Carpenter with synth, you know what I'm saying? But it works well, man. You're right. We don't get it at the beginning, but we still get that theme. I don't think the theme's overused. It would be a shame not to have that theme used in this movie because it's such a good fucking theme. You know what I'm saying? And it's done well and it sounds great. And this guy's a great composer. I was looking up his other stuff, and other than the Halloween movies,
he's done some Star Trek shit. I know.
Yeah. Well, he's done a lot of stuff where he's done. They said he did sound effects or sound design, but there's a lot of stuff he wasn't the composer, like the main composer. And so I was disappointed to see he wasn't, but he, other than those movies. So, but he's great, man. He's great in here. He does a good job. And I think it's fucking banging. You're right. There is no actual like licensed music, but it would have dated the film having, I don't know.
Van Halen at the same time, isn't one of the reasons why we love Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors because of the Dawkins song? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What did we just watch? What we were just talking about a film with 80s. What did we just
Return of the Living Dead?
Yes. Great soundtrack, by the way.
Yeah. And it dates the film, but those songs really stand. But that's a film that feels of its time. This one, somebody mentioned it tonight. Like this feels like it could fit in any like decade almost.
Yeah, it could be the 90s. I mean, more recent. I mean, there's no cell phones, but you're right. It could have been like, oh, this was
there's no drugstore selling costumes and shit anymore. But
this store came out in 94. This movie came out in 94. I'd be like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was only 6 years later, but I could have bought that it came out a little bit later or a little bit earlier. And you're right. And a lot of that has to do with not having like a licensed song or but soundtrack's great, man. I mean, the composer does a good job. And
could you imagine? Goddamn, Kid and Play comes out. They're doing a fucking. It's Halloween. Michael Myers back, motherfucker.
Michael Myers goes to a house party.
Yeah, no shit. Michael Myers house party. Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince doing some fucking theme for this movie. That'd be fucking wild.
No best
Freddy's a different beast. You can have the Fat Boys do a song in Freddy. Right? But Michael is different. Like Freddy's more of a jokey character. Michael's more serious. And I like that they took that kind of tone with it, especially with everything going on at the time with the Freddy movies or the Jason movies. They really were trying to throw back to the original one. Cinematographically, storyly, and as well as with the music. What about you, Link? What do you think about the music in the film?
I think it was fine. I think it added to the atmosphere of the movie just as much as the cinematography was, setting up certain scenes, like, the end scene when Jamie is she's been infected with evil, or Michael Myers evil and kills the mom. That whole stairwell scene and the music playing, for like John saying that he hasn't done much. I think he did quite a good job putting his stamp on this movie and carrying it through.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Mark? What are you thinking?
Do
y'all know what music is over at the UK? I'm just kidding. I'm just joking because obviously you do. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Some of the best music in America is influenced by the British invasion, as we call it. So,
ever heard of the Beatles, man?
I have heard of the Beatles. I have
Iron Maiden, man. Iron Maiden's one of the best fucking bands in the world, and they're from the UK.
Oasis.
Oasis. So yeah, Oasis. Yeah.
07.
While you were talking just now, I googled out of curiosity the top 100 Billboard in 1988, and I was going to tell you what the top 4 songs were, and it would be amazing if they put these in this film. It would not. It would ruin the film, but
I'm excited.
Number 4, the top. So this is for the whole year. Number 4, Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh,
God.
Rickroll.
George Harrison, Got My Mind Set on You.
Oh, I love that song.
That would actually work. Like that's Michael's
Yeah.
theme talking about Jamie.
In Excess, Need You Tonight. Maybe Michael needs them, like, you know.
Yeah. I need to kill you tonight.
So far, you're selling me right now, man.
and then the top one, the number 1 is a George Michael, Faith.
Bro, I actually think they should put all 4 of those.
They should put all
songs in
4 of
this
those
movie.
fucking movies.
Yeah, but all right,
Need a new
I
cut.
might argue otherwise. Like,
I want
do
the
it then.
top 40 cut of Halloween 4.
No, I did notice the lack of licensed music, and but to be honest with you, what they do use, it's fine. It helps to like you know, Link said, it adds with the cinematography, and it suits the atmosphere of the film. I did write down actually that, you know, the is it the sheriff's daughter, when she walks in with the teas or coffees or whatever.
Yeah.
And they don't have the Halloween theme tune then, but it's sort of slowly in the background, like building the tension. You can just hear it like creep in your ear kind of thing as she's walking in, and you know she's going to get killed. But I just love how she's like just about to light the candle or whatever, and then sees like the guy's head on the side. And then as that happens, suddenly Michael just flips around, and then the Halloween theme tune kicks in. But I just love the creepy sort of build up before it comes in. So
Yeah.
So they do use music well, but it's a shame that I do think, like, there's nothing wrong with the odd licensed bit of music being in a film. So,
But that's not something that's like prevalent in any Halloween film except for H2O, right?
yeah.
I mean, honestly, think about it, right? There's no licensed music in any of these films except for H2O, right? And it's because, like, we're talking about the late 90s, the Scream 1 and 2 soundtracks did very well. People still buy CDs. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I like that they didn't use licensed music, but I would love it if Faith and Need You Tonight were in this fucking movie. That would be fucking, it might make it, I don't know, it might make it work just a little bit better. All right.
Michael's like, I got to let you know you're one of my kind.
No shit. That's the whole kind of point of it, right? All right. Now it's time to talk about the theme, because we are the pop culture philosophers. Halloween. What Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers? What's it speaking to you? If you dig a little bit deeper, what do you pull from it? Brooks, kick us off.
Well, like, one thing I'd like, I think that my favorite part of this movie is the dynamic between Loomis and Michael. And like, I kind of think, this is kind of just me, like, you know, doing my kind of speculating a bit on this, but it feels kind of like a broken bond, you know, or a sense of betrayal between these two. Because there's one point that Loomis says, like, they talk about Michael's humanity. He's like, he lost his humanity long ago. And it kind of feels like, you know, maybe Loomis knew him when he did have some humanity. Like, maybe at some point Loomis knew Michael, and like maybe it's Michael actually displayed, you know, like some humanity, and like maybe
he saw it slip away. Right?
Yeah, like he became close with this patient of his, but then he lost him. And so, like, you know, that's why he feels so responsible, and why he has to, like, you know, constantly pursue Michael and try to, like, you know, put an end to this, because, you know, he's got to get that closure, you know, because he feels responsible. Like, you know, he sees Michael as a failure, you know, like he found the humanity inside of him, but he wasn't able to, like, you know, to keep him, you know, on the right path. And it feels like, you know, like him and Michael had this, like, you know, falling out, and now he's cursed. He's kind of cursed in a way to, you know, continue to pursue this evil that he feels like maybe he had a hand in creating, or was unable to at least, you know, stop.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Hammer Time Holshoe? Speaking of Halloween, what do you think about the theme? What's it saying to you?
I mean, I don't know, other than, like Brooks saying, like, this driving force or whatever for him, like, because it's a weird thing, because it's not like I drew something from the film like life changing. You know, we've talked about this when we watched Return of the Living Dead. Like, I didn't watch it and then the next day be like, my life's changed. I've had films that were definitely impacted me. This wasn't one of those films, but it does change his character and shows his driving because he's going after Jamie specifically. So what, he doesn't want anybody, his lineage or his family, to live. You know what I'm saying? Is he going to off himself after? That's a whole weird. I don't know what to draw for it, man. Other than, you know, there's inherently evil in this world, and it's hard to stop. You know what I'm saying? And Dr. Loomis is supposed to be the good guy, but sometimes I think Dr. Loomis isn't 100% there either because he's so like.
No,
I mean, he yeah, we talked about that.
Even
like,
in part 2, I shot him 6 times.
Yeah.
6 times.
But he's also driven by stopping Michael more than anything else. Does he not have other fucking patients? What's going on with these other patients?
Well, I mean, well, for instance, we didn't even talk about this scene, but the scene with old Blue from Old School, right? Blue from Old School. You my boy, Blue, the preacher who picks up Loomis, when he's hitchhiking, and like you see Loomis like, I would love a drink, and he just gets so happy watching this dude fucking just sing. And this dude is obviously a crazy fucking right-wing religious nut. You know what I'm saying? So like I've been hunting down Armageddon for fucking 40 years, you know, and like that shows it's about the obsessive quality of Loomis in this franchise, right?
He saw something in this old guy. Saw a bit of himself reflected.
No shit, they're both hunting down Armageddon. They're like, you can't kill damnation or something, right? Like, that's actually a really good scene, man. John?
Yeah. I got nothing else, man. I don't know. It was a movie.
Okay, no, you already did it, man. You're fine.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully what I said, but yeah,
you already nailed it.
There's definitely something there to like that inherent evil and the drive and it's yeah, take that away from it. Take away what you will. Somebody else might get something different. Somebody may be like, I watch this film and it makes me horny. I don't know. Different people get different things. They may watch it and want.
Horny.
They may watch it and want.
Scene, man.
God damn it. You may watch it and get hungry for tacos or something. I don't know. Different people get different things from different movies, man.
By the way, in that scene with Brady and the sheriff's daughter, when she's like, let's go to the bedroom, he goes, no, we're fine here. No. If that is happening and the chick or whoever is with you is like, let's take this upstairs, you go, yes, right the fucking now. Let's fucking do it. And you would have more time to get your fucking clothes together before the sheriff walked in. And that's a great bit too, when the sheriff's like, Brady, you know how to work a gun? He knows what's up. And he wants to make sure that the protection of the household and the community is first and foremost. And once he realizes, yeah, you're good. By the way, if you touch my fucking daughter, I'm going to kill you. Right? Like, that's cool because that would be a different dynamic in other films. What about you, Link? What do you think about the message of the theme or of the film? The theme. What's it speaking to you?
I'll go with generational curses, penance, I guess. Michael wanted his revenge on Laurie. Couldn't get that, so it was transferred over to Jamie. She had to serve that penance for Laurie, her mom. That's all I really got. But yeah,
that's good though, man. It's true, man. It really is there because like the chilling point of Halloween to me and why Rob Zombie kind of fucked it all up. Michael Myers, there is no reason for him to kill, right? He's just soulless. He's just evil. He's that kid born with the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, right? I love that bit of it, right? And the fact that curse, yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis, her character, Laurie Strode, may have escaped it in this timeline, right? By being killed in a car accident, right? But it goes to the next person. Like if you owe $100,000 to a debt company and you die, sorry, someone's stuck with that shit. That's how fucked up we are here in America. But not in America is Mark. What do you think about the theme of the film? What you sitting on, man?
Do you know what I actually did like that? Is when I sat back to think about this film. I'll be honest. My initial thought was something a little bit jokey. Was you got a guy who massacred loads of people in 1 and 2. Just leave him be. You don't need to move him anywhere. I think what we can learn from that is don't go and move your guy who's indestructible. But no, actually, when I did deep down thought about it, that actually was the same thing that Link said. Sorry, it was the generational thing for me. That was what really stood out for me. Was I thought if you think about it deeper, it opens with Jamie getting mentally tortured by this person she's never met, and that was what made me think about this. I thought she's getting mentally these nightmares of this man in a mask that she may or may not have seen pictures of, but the detail surrounding her. And so that's why I started to think this is really a symbolism of generational curses and sometimes like the trauma that these people go through. So we don't know, and I know we made a lot of jokes at the beginning of this show about we don't know what led to her birth. Was it a hookup or whatever it was? But we don't know the consequences of what happened from Halloween 2 to Halloween 4, and what Jamie may or may not have overheard in her subconscious. And this is where some people they don't deal with this trauma that they went through when they were younger, and that leads to potentially bad decisions as they start to get older, because they don't sit back and recognize actually the things that they haven't yet dealt with. Some people walk around, I know they're like sort of like carrying around boulders, so to speak, and she's such a young age and she's dealing with this huge event, and yeah, it just really stuck out about generational curses, and really, and this film really shows actually that as it ends, it's still not over. That generational curse is continuing. It was just the same as Link, really. So
yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I would echo that, right? Like, I think, first of all, I'm always proud of everybody here on the PCP panel. We are pop culture philosophers for a reason, and everybody is spot on about what the movie means to them. And what I would add to that is it is about trauma. It is about generational trauma, but it's also about the mother to the daughter, right? There's that in there as well. But there's bits in that, like, I know this is very subtle, but even the sheriff and his daughter, there's like a generational thing going on there, right? But I think one of the most brilliant things about this film that I wish it would have dived in to a little bit more was how this trauma not just affected Jamie, but how it affected the entire town, right? Because you get that sense. Like when they're at the bar and he goes, hold on a second, what's going on? Everybody shut the fuck up. Let me call the sheriff's office. Nobody answers. And he pulls out his gun, finishes his beer, and goes, well, come on, y'all. That's about a community.
And those guys end up murdering a dude.
They do. And he even goes, oh, motherfucker, that was goddamn Hetfield fuck or whatever the fuck his name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that was
Hetfield
fuck
fuck.
McGee over there, goddamn it. Like, what the
and the
fuck,
asshole
man?
like looks to one of his buddies like, what the fuck did you do?
But what I love about it is it's showing us how this trauma, this event affects not just one person, not just one person and their family, not just a family and their inner circle, but an entire community, right?
Can I just jump in a second?
Yeah, of course.
What, like, just to jump, like, to agree with you here. So, what I'm about to say, like, obviously, I know everyone's gonna probably be shocked by what I'm about to say. When I went to school in a very small village town just outside of London, and everybody knew each other, etc. And I was probably about age 14, and one night. There was these two boys that went to my school. I won't say their names because I'm sure people could Google this. The dad of these two boys killed his mum with a hammer. Anyway, the next day the whole school was called into an assembly by my head teacher. That's like the principal. And basically everybody knew, the whole town knew by like 9 a.m. that day. And he called us in and basically said, look, he didn't go into the details or anything like that, because he said, I'm sure you lot already know, but he gave like a protection speech of these two boys and said, like, they're going to take some time off, but when they come back, they are completely like under my protection. They're not, what we talked about earlier in the film was Jamie getting like bullied from, your uncle's a boogeyman, all this kind of stuff. He said, like, if any of this taunting happens, I will expel you instantly. And so, like, and it did. And this boy was these two boys, but especially the youngest boy, I used to see him a lot, even as I became an adult. And I'm aware of where he is in life now, even. So, like, you know, you can see like that one thing, how it affected other people. Now, obviously, I'm not directly affected, but you can see, like, I could see him sometimes walking around the town or the village that we used to live in, and you know, his behavior sometimes, you know, you could understand like what he was going through because of, well, you know, I heard about the police carrying him out of the house in the, like at night, and you know, things that they tried to hide him from as they were trying to take him out of the house. And so I know it's not the same as a horror movie, but I just wanted to jump on and agree that I'd seen that in real life.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you for sharing that, dude. There was an incident in my hometown where me, John, and Brooks live, right?
yeah.
And there was a dude when we were in our early 20s. He was a teenager, but he killed his family, right? He was a high schooler who killed his family. It was a big deal in the town, and one of my exes was friends with this person, right? And we've all like it's crazy because it is something that carries over in the community. And I like how that works in this film. And I guess the idea is like these kind of acts, this kind of trauma, it's not just about one person feeling it. It's not just about a family feeling it. It's about a whole community, right? I even had, when I was in high school, I had my youngest brother died in a car accident with two of my aunts and a cousin of mine. And that was like a whole thing. Like people we didn't know were coming to our houses, giving us fried chicken and food, casseroles. The news was there every fucking day, wanted to talk about it because it was like a big like automobile accident. It was the thing for like 2 weeks or whatever, right? That still affects me, right? And we're not even talking about heinous murder. We're talking about, but what is that? Like that is like something random. Like when death is random, death is hard enough to deal with when we know what's coming, right? But when something is like sudden and out of nowhere, it's really rough, and it does affect the community in some kind of way. I guess my point is that like trauma is the point of this movie, but just how it reverberates across a community, right? Even to people who are not a part of it, not affected at all. It's still like, Mark, you shared that story. I shared my story. We all got stories, I'm sure, you know, but like, it is a thing, man. Like it's silly now in this world where we're like, well, trauma means that like nobody liked me or they called me fat when I was a fucking kid or whatever. Right. You know, something like that. But like, we're talking about real shit that's beyond control. That's beyond just bullying, right? That bullying becomes kind of a part of, right? It's really fucked up how we as a society, at least in the States, I don't know what it's like over in the UK, Mark, but we like to tout ourselves as being like, oh, we're all about mental health and this and that, blah, 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 blah. But we don't make it easy people to deal with it. Most of the time down here, it's like, at least in the South, and I don't know what's like in Michigan, Link, maybe John knows because he's from Michigan as well. But like down here in Alabama, it's like, walk it off, motherfucker. What are you? Don't be a bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of shit. And that's the kind of shit that like people can say, don't be a bitch. But then all of a sudden you're closing your bar to go hunt down a motherfucker and you kill some innocent motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And that's the point. Like trauma causes more violence, causes more death, even if you are indirectly affected by it. Like the fucking dude who runs the bar, he goes out there with this drunk fucking compadres and they gun down this dude. Let's take this back further to part 2, because Loomis is the one inciting all this shit because of the own madness, the trauma that's inflicted on him. In part 2, he causes this dude to get run over and the fucking truck blows up and just burns this motherfucker alive. It's
Rest
not
in
even
peace,
him.
Ben Tramer.
Yeah, never forget. You know what I'm saying?
And they didn't learn their lesson. They didn't learn the Ben Tramer
They did
lesson.
not, man. And that's kind of like a part of it, dude. Like the smallest thing is the butterfly effect of trauma, I guess, right? And how it reverberates not just through one person or a family or even a community, but through the entire world, Joe. So fuck, dude. Fuck. Now I've lost myself in the midst of this. Now we got to rate this film out of 5 possible you digs. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. What do you give it out there in the chat? Brooks, why don't you kick us off here, man?
Well, like when I watched this movie, I kind of felt like it was a very standard slasher movie, but I think and this is kind of my just reading more into it, but like the Michael Loomis dynamic in this movie kind of elevates it a bit for me, because like it is a standard slasher, but it has a little more to it, I think, because of this kind of weird relationship between Loomis and Michael. So I give this one a 4. Like, I think it's above average. It is a little bit standard, but like I said, the Loomis Michael dynamic, I think, really pushes it a little bit.
Hell yeah! Even with the fried egg on his fucking face. Speaking of fried egg on the face, what about you, Hammer Time Whole Shoe? When I was gonna make a joke saying one time I saw you with the fried egg on your face, but that I couldn't make it work. So what about you? Out of 5 you digs, what do you rate this film?
You did catch me that one time with bacon on my face.
That's true, but that's more Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I don't even know what's going on at this point. I would say 4.5. I'm going to give it extra credit because it had a lot to bring back the Michael Myers thing. You know what I'm saying? It had a lot of lifting to do. Like, we're going to bring back the Michael Myers and do it in a certain way, and we don't have Lordy and blah blah blah. So I give it extra. I was going to say 4, but I'm going to give it an extra 0.5 because of the sheer, there was an uphill battle for to make this film, I think, or to make a decent sequel, a decent follow-up to 2. So that's why I give it a 4.5. It's not a 5. It's not the original Halloween. I think there are better horror films out there, but I'll go 4.5, man. I think it's pretty solid, and I think it's a good follow-up to the second film. And I think, unless you really like the newer ones, which kind of pisses away 2, 4, 5, and 6, but whatever.
7, 8.
And it does suck though. What hurts this movie, the biggest problem with this movie is not 1, it's not 2, it's not the movie itself, it's the follow-up sequel undoes a lot of great stuff in this film. So if you ignore that film, this film is all the better for it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and that's what we're rating it at, as what they're doing, right?
Yeah,
and you're right. I love what you just said there, man. That was really fucking great. And you're taking the Horrorfest approach, man. Like the conversation. First of all, PCP movie night. The conversation of a movie can sway us, right? But like the other thing is, this is Horrorfest, man. We all got a 0.5 leeway, so we're all good. What about you, Link? What do you think about Halloween 4?
I'm gonna go with a solid 3.75. I think it's not one of my favorites, but I could definitely rewatch this, and I intend to, based off Mark's how much enjoyability he got off of that. I think they did a fine job. As we stated earlier or throughout the stream, they had a lot stacked on their plate. Trying to bring back the franchise. I've been desensitized too much, but like I said, if I'd seen this younger, I could definitely see myself loving this a lot more. But I do think it's a fine film, and they did quite well with what they had to do, and it's a solid entry to the Halloween franchise. 3.75 with room to grow.
Hell yeah, I like that. What about you, Mark? What are you sitting on?
I think from where I started, like when I watched it the first time, to where I've ended it, and then you said a minute ago, the conversation can also sway you a little bit. My gradings were a lot lower on the first watch. It is weird when you're watching something for enjoyment and reviewing, like there's some sort of mental, I don't know how to describe it. You'll watch, and I said this on my own podcast the other day. I rewatched Miss Marvel and I hated it the first time, and I watched it the second time and actually flipping gave it a 5 out of 5 on the second watch. And with this, I think that, I'll be honest, I probably was going to give it around a 2 or something. But having watched it a second time and this conversation, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Fuck yeah, dude! I like the way we haven't had a fun house yet in this Horrorfest. I'm just going to say that. That's nice. For me, I will give this movie a 4.5. I think it's a really great sequel to Halloween. I think it continues the themes. I think the music is great. I love the style and the atmosphere and the tone of the movie. I really like this movie. I think it's got some of the best characters out of all of the films, except for maybe like H2O. I would rank my top 3 would be the first one, obviously. Like whenever you're ranking Halloween, we all know what number 1 is. So like the most interesting thing is not to go from the worst to the best, but from the best to the worst, right? And I would go Halloween, H2O, and then this one. I fucking love those 3 movies. Halloween 4 is Danielle Harris's first movie. She's great in it. She's going to have a good career. She's my homie. I've met her. She's not my homie, but I've met her. So that's cool. John was there. John took that picture, man. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the first thing we did at Scarefest last year. I was like, I got to go meet Danielle Harris right now, man.
That was last
right
year.
now. Yeah. So that was good. So I'll give it a 4.5. So a 4.5 from me and from Whole Shoe, a 4 from Brooks and from Mark, and a 3.75 from Link for a PCP average of Happy Halloween, motherfuckers. That's what it is. This is the end of Horrorfest. Yo, the bloodiest, most transgressive Horrorfest lineup of all time and one of the best Horrorfests ever. And speaking just from the corner of PCP, this has been the most embraced Horrorfest that we've ever had. So we really appreciate you. We got more movie reviews coming. We got more content involving movies as well as the comic book stuff. We are making our plans for 2025 right now. You will not be disappointed. But Horrorfest is over. It's been a long road. There were even some bonus episodes that are not on this list, but it all works. But we're done with Horrorfest. And we're not doing a PCP movie night on Monday. We're taking a well-deserved break off. Break off? We're taking a well-deserved break and a week off, I should say. But we will be back November 11th. And for the next 3 consecutive weeks, starting with November 11th, we'll be talking about Back to the Future.
Oh, no, really?
Back to the Future Part 2. And then, you ready for it? Back to the Future Part fucking 3. November is Back to the Future month. And then December is Van December. So get ready for some more Van Damme classics in December. And like I said, the 2025 lineup is exceptionally well. But seriously, thank you all for being here as a part of Horrorfest. It's great to end it here on PCP on a Halloween evening with a movie review that's longer than the movie itself. Brooks, thank you for being here. Final thoughts. What you got to say?
I'll just, I guess I had to point out that me and Jelani do Go Figure reviews, and we recently did a Halloween special where we talked to Mark Spears. John was there, of course. It was a fun little chat, like with somebody I hadn't seen in a while, and it's I think it turned out to be a pretty good little interview. And this week we did a couple of videos. We did the new Odin, Marvel Legends, and Dracula from the Strange Tales set. So those should be coming out pretty soon. I don't know if he's going to have either of them out in time for Halloween, but probably not. But yeah, so you can check those out. But for my final like movie quote, it would have to be no.
It's the best nose that Donald Pleasance has ever delivered. John, thank you so much for being here, man. I love you. You're my brother. You're my homie. You're the co-founder of PCP. What's your final thoughts about Horrorfest and this movie in particular, or whatever the fuck you want to say?
I don't know, man. I had fun with the movie, and I don't know, man. I got nothing. Go check out Go Figure reviews, and I will point out, and Robbie probably talked about this the other night on one of his shows, but the Phantasm people are fucking great folks.
Yes, they are, man. Our homies.
Yeah, it was fun inadvertently hanging out with
Adam
them
Green, by the way,
times.
liked my Instagram post earlier. I'm just gonna say,
Adam Green's fucking
that's
cool
pretty
guy,
fucking
so
dope.
that was a lot of fun, and my biggest thing from this whole Halloween everything is just how much fun we had for Scarefest. Like, and I'm excited for next year, man. I'm just hoping Joe Dante shows up next time and doesn't ditch, because he's still. Do you know he was originally supposed to direct Halloween 3 or
Yeah.
Halloween 4?
I know
Not
that.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been a completely different take, I think. If he did
That'd been great,
Halloween.
man. Think about it. This would have been the movie he would have done before The Burbs, man.
Yeah, yeah, man. If you haven't seen Halloween 4 in a while, go check it out, man. It's a fun little film. And then be like, oh, this is good. And then you'll start watching the subsequent sequels and be like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. Just watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 7.
I did have my nephew watch 3 not too long ago, and he's never seen any Halloween films, and he hates me now.
Link, thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts? What you got?
Oh yeah, no, it is. But I can't believe it's over. Horrorfest. Jesus, seems like we just started. But no,
We
happy
talked
to
about
be
like
here.
60 fucking plus movies this year, man. It was great though,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
You know, it was fun. It's been fun. It's always fun. But yeah, I'm glad you guys introduced me to this movie. And I look forward to watching 5 and 6. Not really, but I will watch them.
There are things to like about those films though, but they're not 4. But H2O is great. You've seen H2O, right?
Yeah.
Oh, H2O is fucking amazing,
Love
man.
H2O. Yeah, that's
So
that.
good.
I was like a kid. That's one of my default horror movies. You know, I think that might have been the first Halloween I seen was H2O. Like Mark.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That was the
my
first one I
first.
saw in the theaters was H2O.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Mark also said that was his first Halloween film was H2O. So Mark, thank you
Yeah.
for being here. Final thoughts. What's coming up?
Do you know what, when I can't remember, I think it was after the second time I watched it today. And I've thought this before, like through. Well, actually, I'll shout this out. So I do Geeks and Niche podcast. Been doing it for almost 5 years now, which is flipping insane. This will be the 5th Christmas actually, and as we'll know, Robbie, soon it'll be the 5th Scott Pilgrim. So,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, so I started the podcast with my co-host Jasmine, who's in Houston. I live just outside London. We've been running it for, well, as of next summer, it'll be almost 5 years. We do a weekly review. First, however many episodes were just random shit, but from episode 100, we just review adapted content, comics or movies, comics or games, etc. Whether they're comic book, TV shows or movies. Sorry, it's getting late now. Been doing that a long time. We also review graphic novels and have conversations. And that Joker said there, for 5 Christmases, Robbie has come on and we reviewed. We were working our way every Christmas through the Scott Pilgrim franchise as well. This year we did a good chunk of movie. We covered all of the X-Men live action movies from Generation X all the way to Deadpool Wolverine. I think Link was on for a good chunk of those as well. We've just been working our way through the Scroll Marvel ones. So this week was Secret Invasion and next week will be the Marvel. But yeah, through doing Geeks and Niche and coming on your channel and to come back to this movie, I thought, by being in this sort of world, I've watched stuff that I probably wouldn't have watched or even read. You know, there's been some graphic novels that I've read during this period of time as well. And yeah, I find this whole thing is like a learning and like an educational thing. So watching Halloween 4, I'll be honest, if I wasn't doing this, I probably never would have put it on. Well, I can't see that I ever would have put it on. You never know. Something may have happened in my life, but I after I finished it the second time, I thought, I'm glad I've watched this, and I'm glad because I hadn't even seen 1 or 2 before either. So to work my way through 1, 2, and 4 are films I'm very much aware of. I know they're classic films. They're referred to constantly. I know they span a massive franchise that even has had many reboots and timelines. So it was good to finally go back to the beginning, having weirdly started towards the middle and the end. So I appreciate the opportunity to watch this and then discuss it with all of you guys. So yeah, just thanks for having me on, and I appreciate actually the opportunity to watch. And this film itself, I think, to be honest, was actually not a bad movie.
Oh yeah, I
Dot,
agree
dot,
with
dot.
that. Can I?
No, it's not a bad movie. Like, I enjoyed it.
It's not a bad movie.
No, it's not a bad movie. I think that's all. I think, like I said, the first time I watched it, I wasn't loving it, but the second watch made me think, actually, I quite like this. And it's weird. there's moments where I laughed and actually started to get into some of the characters, and you know, just overall I thought it was an enjoyable film, and that ending though was brilliant. That's got to give it for a lot, you know.
Yeah,
it's stolen a lot of other films' endings. There's some films I've watched where they just ended so flat, and you know they've had like a good 75%, and then they like, oh, how do we end the movie? And I thought, what a great ending to a film.
yeah, it's a great ending.
Yo, I did forget. Blood Splatter Chatter will be covered. I think Bruno said it's the 2018 Halloween movie. I'm not sure, but he will be back next week, covering something amazing. So check
Yeah,
that
are
out.
y'all doing something Sunday too?
Yes. Shit, I forgot about my shit. I smoked too much. We are doing. I forget the names of the movies, but one is I think it's Don't Move. It's on Netflix. It just released. Sam Raimi produced it, and then the other one's as Azrael. It's got Samara Weaving in it. That's all
Those
I needed
are
to
the
know.
movies, man.
That
You
one.
don't smoke too much. You smoke just enough. So,
Oh.
there you go.
But yeah,
As soon as you
Sunday.
said you smoke too much, I had to go, where's my weed vape? I was like, somebody just mentioned smoking weed. Let's fucking do it. All right. Horrorfest is over. It was a long journey, and it was fun, and it was great. We're taking next week off. But then we got Back to the Future on November 11th. The week after that, Back to the Future Part 2. The week after that, Back to the Future Part 3, because this is a trilogy that is worth paying attention to each movie individually. And it was the movie we watched, the franchise we watched at Scarefest last year. She remember they were on, it was like right before Halloween. And for some reason on Sci-Fi Channel, they're playing fucking Back to the Future, right? That was super fun. So we're ready for that. Also, Danielle Harris is awesome. Go check out her podcast, Talk Scary to Me, with Scout Taylor Thompson as well, who was
I thought it was
also
Compton.
it might be Compton. Scout, go check out Talk Scary to Me. It's a great podcast. Definitely worth checking out. We'll be doing the award-winning monthly comic book review tomorrow night at 7. I'll be live with Alex from Dynamite tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central to talk about their New York Comic-Con news. And then what is it? Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central Time is the CBC Awards. So let's see if we got anything this year, y'all. I fucking hope so. Last year we got 5 out of 6.
Best beard. Was it best beard?
It was best hair, best beard,
Oh,
all that shit.
oh,
yeah, bro. I'm not nominated for that this year, though.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, we didn't want to step in that controversy. But I was nominated for most comedic, and that apparently was controversial this year. So we'll see. Tune into the CBC Awards. We'll be back for Back to the Future. We got a great panel. The same panelists will be on all 3 of those reviews. And then Van December, if you want to call it that, if you're nasty. We're going to be doing that. So get ready. We're having fun. And for my final thoughts, I'll just say, cops do it by the book.